Okay, so some of you are going to start working in Maya, and we're going to start developing our Super Soaker rifle design for Hasbro. Okay, what's important before I do anything, whether it's traditional art or Maya related, is I go in and I look at my reference. So let's take a look at the reference that we have, and we look for certain similarities that are good design elements that are already being used by the company first place, and second of all, we can look at some things that might be a little bit more outdated or not being used. Okay, this is a fun Super Soaker image here. However, though, this feels outdated, doesn't it? And it's outdated because it's probably about 10 or 15 years old, and some of the elements in here are sort of basic rounded elements, and there's sort of a ray gun feel in here. This is going to be more indicative of a different style of design, which is going to be something that you might see with sort of certain science fiction genres, okay, and with ray guns and so on. So versus when I come back here, this is a different brand, but when I look at these large tubes here, these carrying handles here, multiple tips on the front here, a tripod mount, that is a cool design. That can be a lot of fun for a kid. Okay, here's a current design of a rifle that has a shield in there. It has a water clip. Okay, here's the same version of that rifle where you can take off the back here. There's actually a button in the back that presses up. This comes off, and then you could add on. There's a different handle, and this can take clips. Okay, it can work differently. This one is hand powered, I believe, where you pump this. Okay, this one is also pump powered. Okay, however, this one here is battery pack powered. So there's different variations right there. There's 3 different versions of a gun. Okay, some kids like having the battery because they don't have to pump anything. Those are the lazy kids that eat at McDonald's. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, and then you have the other ones that are going to have the pump actions on them that are going to take a little bit more work. One of the benefits of the pump actions is that they never run out of batteries. They can be submerged underwater and get wet. They can be used in a pool or at the river. Okay, I say that because I go to the river and I know because I see my kids use them. And when you submerge the ones with the batteries in it, guess what happens? The batteries, the electronics get wet, starts to break down. The batteries get wet and they fall apart in about a week. Okay, so let's take a look at a current design. Look at how nice this is. Yes, this resembles something more militaristic. Okay, there's a definite military feel in there. Okay, probably first off because of the tripod and the ammo clip that's connected that runs out of it. Okay, outside of that, there's wonderful design principles. I like to call this overlapping detail right here, segmented detail. See this little shield piece here? That's similar to something you might see on a real gun because the barrel gets hot from firing multiple times and they have shield pieces that cover it. Okay, look at this thing. It has a huge clip that mounts into the side. It has a cool grip piece on it. Okay, it has a collapsible stock. Other features that you might see in traditional gun design. Okay, collapsible stock, heat shields, scopes, variations in clip size. A lot of you here have seen different games and, you know, came from gaming backgrounds. Totally different weapons, okay? Look at this. This is from the movie The Fifth Element. Here's Gary Oldman handling this gun here. It was a great little point in here inside the story because this gun could do multiple things. It could shoot a net. It had a built-in machine gun. I think it had a missile launcher on it. It had like numerous functions on it. It was a really cool design, okay? Here's another gun design. Anyone know what movie is this from? District 9, that's correct. Okay, so here they had some type of tube that connected in. There's little elements here. There's a different type of handle system, okay? Here's another gun. I'm not sure where this is from. I just grabbed this off the internet. I thought it looked nice. I thought it was Mass Effects, but okay. Really wonderful design here, okay? Look at the first of all, we were just talking a minute ago about geometric shapes, avoiding 90-degree angles. Look at the curves and the geometric shapes that are in here. No 90 degrees in there, folks. 90-degree angles are boring. They are bad. This is a real gun right here. This is a new shotgun design, okay, by a company out of Florida called Keltec, okay? It looks totally different and unique, okay? It is. This is a shotgun that has 2 tubes that shoots 15 rounds, okay, because of the 2 tubes in it, okay? It has a triangle design in it. It has stock adjustments in the back. It's a fun, interesting design, okay? Here's another design that I found offline. This looks like sort of an AR-15 or M16 that's been sort of updated with a futuristic spin on it. Okay? So there's tons of different information that I've came across. Okay? This is a real rifle here, okay, that's being used currently by the armed forces. It's one of the best manufactured devices. It's called an FN Herstal. Okay? You can shoot it, submerge it in dirt, oil, water, whatever, and it never jams. Here's just the back of it. Okay? It has a stock that pulls out. It has a really expensive eyesight. It has a handle. There's a switch to go automatic or non-automatic. I'm not asking you to design me a military rifle. I'm asking you to design a new Super Soaker rifle for a futuristic 5 years out. Okay? Look at that. Does that feel like something that kids were playing with in the 1920s? No. Does that feel like something that I had as a child when I grew up in the 1980s and the 90s? No. Okay? This has, look at all the geometric shapes that are in here. Look at the obtuse and acute angles that are in here. There is barely any 90-degree angles inside this piece except for right here by the clip. And that could be understandable because it might have some type of an ammunition that is going to be mounted in through that clip that requires it to be at a 90-degree angle. However, though, the fact that there's only 1 or 2 90-degree angles in this whole design, the majority of this whole design is angular, okay, and it is geometric shapes having acute and obtuse angles in it. That is key right here because somebody's going to put up a piece along our development process, and they're going to have in that piece tons of 90-degree angles like this. 90-degree angles are boring. They're not interesting, okay? There are times when you can use it, but for the most part, having curved shapes, acute and obtuse angles are going to add a lot to your design. It's going to make it pop out and look more visually appealing. Welcome to the new age of design that's being thrown at us, whether it's you're going to see phones, games, industrial product design, military-based packs, okay, especially product design, okay. You're going to see lots of variations. Now, here's a cool rifle design, but this feels like something that's current. I can push that design. That is an old design. That was designed, anyone know what that movie that's from? Aliens, okay, with Sigourney Weaver. I say Reaver? Weaver. Okay. There's another view of that. That's a great design. Look at the geometric shapes in here. Look at the angles in there. That's what makes it visually appealing. Okay. This also looks appealing because it has elements of a gun combined with a shotgun with elements of a futuristic rifle. In fact, if I would bet money that the guy that designed that was probably given a script page or talked to an art director that said, I want the gun to feel like it's a shotgun meets an automatic weapon meets futuristic, and that's what you get right there. Okay. So some other ideas. I like this idea because even though there's some hard 90s in this, I like the idea of having the ammo pack in the back. You might have a multi-displacement version of ammo of water containers that slap in the back, allowing the kids to adjust the weight or carry water with them. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. All right. Here's a futuristic military rifle with a laser targeting system on the top. Okay, it's important to look at all this stuff and to see similarities inside these designs. Look at that. I found that design online. It was done in Photoshop by an amazing artist. I forget who this guy is, but what a great design for a game company. Okay, the only difference between that rifle being on this version here or being used for a game, I should say, versus being used for development of toy design at Hasbro would be what? The colors and the storage of the water. That would be it. Okay? So, take a look at that reference. So what I'm going to do right now is I have my Photoshop window pulled up. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and record a little bit here. I want to show you how you guys should approach your design process. Okay? This is how. And this is something I want you guys to do, and I want you to bring these drawings with you on Tuesday. Okay, I'm going to give you Thursday. Actually, I could give you homework, but we'll see. I want you to be able to design and think about stuff and dive into Maya. Okay, so let's start with beginnings, right? what do I know right now? I know that this right here with this is boring. That's boring. Why? This is all 90s. Even if I come in here, I always have a student that does this. They turn this into me. And again, this has to be a rifle, not a handgun. Okay? It's a rifle design. So here's a design I get from a student all the time. Okay? That. What's wrong with that? It's boring. Why is it boring? Let's go to red and let me show you. Okay? Because it has 90s here. It has squares. Squashed squares, which are rectangles. It has 90s in here. It has 90s here. 90s here. 90s here. Even though that's sort of a tube shape, okay, it has a rounded edge, it's still in the shape of a cube. That's not too interesting. Okay? So let's talk about interesting shapes. Okay? So here's something that you guys can do. This is what I want you to do. I want you to on either a piece of paper, because I want you to sit down, and I want you to first, before you start making your rifle here, I want you to think about basic versions of shape. Okay, give me a second. Let me get my brush switched over. There we go. Okay, so let's come over here and I'm going to do that. So right here, let me start making some shapes that are interesting to me. That's an interesting shape. That's a geometric shape. Okay, acute and obtuse angles. Acute is an angle less than 90. Obtuse is an angle that's greater than 90. Okay, so I want to incorporate this into sort of, this is my preliminary phase in my design process right now. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and start making more shapes. Okay, and then sometimes I could complement these shapes with each other. You see how those complement each other? That's a great example. Two shapes that are totally different, but they complement because they intersect in one section. Okay, so let me write complement. Okay, that's my complement option. All right, what's another option? Let's talk about shape and design, right? Overlap. Okay, so when I take a look at overlap, I might do this. I want you guys to think like designers. Oops. Give me a second here, guys. I wanted to put this on. That's all right. I'll go ahead and leave it for right now. I wanted to have it on a separate layer. Okay. So let's go back to my brush there. So now when I overlap this, now I come in and I can do this. I have to do this because I can't erase. I made a mistake and drew on the wrong layer. Okay. Does that make sense? Now I have an overlap of shapes that are existing. Okay. So 1 second. Let me come in here. Let's write that in here. Overlap. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about some shape variations. Okay. Oh. Just said a key word there, variations. So if I end up having shapes like this, they're geometric. Okay, there's a bunch of geometric shapes there, right? Now, variation. What if I come in and I do this? And I put a round shape on top of that. See how visually appealing that starts to feel right now? Okay, I have a couple shapes that are all geometric, and then I have a round shape attached into that. That's variation. Okay. All right. So just right there with complementing shapes, overlapping shapes, and variation, I have 3 basics I can start applying in a part of my design process. Okay, so I'm trying to get you guys to think about what you're making and to avoid this squared off rifle. Okay, the next thing that I like to sort of do is I want you guys to start making your guns Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I like what I have here. So let me just take this right here. We're going to continue finishing up part of our toy design. Okay. But now, let me add to it. Let me finish it up. So look, I have that version there. So how can I finish this up? First thing I could do is I could come in here and I need to figure out there might be some type of a, there's going to be some type of a cannon that's going to, you know, or tube that's going to have the water that's going to come through it. I might decide to come in here, put some type of handle design. Okay. Oops. Okay. Even on that round shape, I haven't indicated this to you, but I like to call this sort of, I'll put this down here. We'll talk about it in just a second here. Call it edge detail. What is edge detail? When I have something that's like this, so I have that round sort of water shape that's coming out of here right now. Okay, I want to put some other edge detail or something that's on that to make it interesting. So here's a great example of my edge detail. As I come over here, I erase part of this, and then I come over here and I do this. See what that does for my shape now? I put a little bit of edging on it. It's the same principle. I talk about this in some of the advanced drawing classes. When I have a wall hit a floor, students leave it blank. Nope. There's detail there. There's trim. There's baseboard. There's edge detail. There's edge detail on everything. Okay? So when I come over here and I'm looking at this, now I could come over here and I could start putting in some edge detail in here. Okay? All right. Now I need to think about how the system would hold. Okay. So I need to come over here. I can look at some reference, and I might decide to do something like this. What I'm thinking about having is some type of a trigger system that's in here. I was thinking maybe having dual triggers for some reason. There. So let's see what that looks like now. I've started. That's just my first path. That's my first sketch. So now I've sort of gone through this process. I was talking about, you know, complement shapes, overlap shapes, variations of shapes, contrasting against each other, edge detail. Okay. So let's come over here right now. I'm going to write something else in here. Let's write down something else to think about. Accessories. So I could come over here. What else could I accessorize on that? I might come up here and decide to put some type of a belt system that hooks up. It would connect from base to base here. Okay. I haven't established this yet. How is the water coming in here? Is it some type of geometric shape that's going inside there? Okay. What are some other accessories I can add? I can come in here and I can place on some type of a scoping or mounting system there might be on there. Okay, that's a real awkward looking scope, but you sort of get the idea. I'm just having fun with it right now. Okay, I could come in here and just throw a scope in that goes like this, basically. There, that might be an attachable element that I could put on there. My whole point is that this is my first pass, and this is what I have. I have a rough gun. Now what I would do is I have a rough toy design. I move that to the corner, and I'm going to go back over, and I'm going to do a couple more. Okay? Usually, there's a process in this where we move to silhouette shapes. However, I've sort of learned that some of you guys don't have the drawing background yet to dive into silhouette shapes. So all I want you to do are drawings like this. Have fun with it. If you're doing your design and you are getting these types of images right here, okay, you're getting these types of drawings, there is an issue with what is taking place because you're getting squares in here. Squares are boring, okay? That is fun. That is a different shape, okay? So one of the last things I would leave you with is right over here in this corner, as I'm doing my variations, think of throwing in a design and then building off of it that you wouldn't have done. I like to call this thinking outside of the box. Okay, so here's an example of that. I might come over here and do this. I just threw that down. That's a different shape. How can I make a rifle out of that? A lot of times you will discover that being a good designer is thinking outside of the box, is forcing yourself to have to think about another solution that is different from what everybody else would do. We have a tendency to do what first comes to us, okay? But now by throwing out a shape like this, and now having to get in there and think about how would I get some type of elements in here that might make this work. See what I'm going for here? I might end up with something really cool that I never thought was possible. Okay? And then this might be what I call a springboard for me to then jump off of and move working onto another design. So you see that? That's just a part of my springboard. How did I get there? Again, I did this. I came in here and I started with this shape. Oops. Sorry, guys. I came in here and I started with this key shape. Pick a shape to start with. Start designing from that shape, jump forward. Okay? If you do a page of these, okay, so about a page, I'm talking, it's not going to take you more than about 30-40 minutes. Okay? If you come up with 10 designs, what will happen is you will go home, you'll be a little tired, and then all of a sudden, a little bit later tonight, another idea will pop in your head, or a solution will pop into another idea that you had. And the majority of the time, that 11th or 12th idea that pops in your head right before you're going to bed, or that extra idea that comes in, tends to be the golden key. Tends to be the one design that solves all your solution problems. I'll do pages of these, and then I go through and I pick the 3 I like, then I put those on a page and then go off of those. That's part of my development process. I call them stepping stones. Okay? So, again, for you, avoid this. This isn't good right here. Think about, okay, complementing shapes. Okay? And I should have wrote this up here, even though we sort of talked about this a minute ago in class here. Okay? When we started all this off, we started talking about geometric shapes. Okay? Not avoiding shapes like this, but we are working into a design language of thinking of stuff like this. This is more visually appealing, okay, than is working with a series of rectangles stacked on each other. And I always get this. I have students that do this, and then they start introducing like triangles. And I'm like, nah, that's still boring. Still not too fun. Okay? Go over all the basics that I talked about here. Okay? Geometric shapes. How they start right here. Acute. Obtuse. Angles. Okay? Complements. Overlapping shapes. Variation of shape. Edge details. And voila. And accessories. You start applying all those into your thought process and your design process and just drawing simple shapes, okay? So some of you, if you don't have a piece of paper, because I know it's a 3D class, I'll grab you a piece of paper and you can start sketching at your desk here as you sit, okay? And this is how, I guarantee you, if you approach your design process from this particular point of view, you are immediately 500% more likely to produce a better design because you've given it more thought, okay? The next thing that I wanted to introduce to you would be, give me a second here, let me get a new layer here, okay? One second, guys. I can't type today. I keep creating the wrong. There we go. Okay, so the next thing that I would recommend to you to do, this is something that I like to do, and this is really simple and really easy, is I like to write down my ideas on a piece of paper because human beings have a tendency not to remember everything. So I like making these written explanations, and this is something that I learned from a long time ago from this wonderful guy who taught at UCLA Extension, who taught an acting class. And one of my art teachers, Marshall Vandriff, told me to go take his class. His name was Don Richardson. And one of the things that Don Richardson taught actors to do was, and he was one of the fundamental individuals involved with acting and method acting, okay, is that he wanted you to think about what it is you're going to act out. And this is a great approach to applying any type of design process or art, is to write down your ideas. Okay, remember I told you about having a concept or a brand or an idea? Okay, so let's just say right here, I'm going to write down a couple ideas. Let's say for my Super Soaker, to make it look really different, to make it look, you know, something totally unique, I might start writing down and say Alien Universe. And then over here I might put down underground people, okay? People that live somewhere in the underground on another planet, okay? Another planet. Okay, so then I start writing down some key things here. So Alien Universe, right? Might have different grip system. Okay. Instead of the rifle being completely symmetrical, it might have multi options. Okay, so it might be, I'm going to put down here multi-platform. From a front view, what I mean by that is, what if the rifle had a core here and then a second piece like this? Instead of it being a symmetrical square, it might have two sections to it. Okay, it might have multiple platforms, might even have a round piece on it like that. That would look different from a front view. Okay, so let's just think Alien Universe, because it's alien, might have a different type of scope device on it. Even though I'm using this for my Super Soaker, I'm trying to think of ways to allow my imagination to expand out. Okay, so I have scope device. What else could I throw in there? Any other suggestions from you guys? It's got to be. Okay, so I could think of materials. Maybe part of my gun has crystals in it, a little chamber, and that could be interesting to kids. Okay, I mentioned before about taking a game or something that you might know of already and going off of that and expanding off of that. Pretend you were designing a rifle for Halo 4, but it's going to be a Super Soaker version for Hasbro. What would that look like? How would you incorporate their design principles? You have to go look at the art of Halo 4 and find some design principles and start applying those to your build. Okay, so go through that and come up with these ideas. Again, I'm holding you to a standard at which Hasbro would want you to look at your design. Don't bring me a steampunk squirt gun. Steampunk is not part of Hasbro right now. That's not their design principles. Okay? Again, I could keep going off this. I talked about materials. What else can I put in there? Any ideas? What about, someone mentioned this earlier about interchange. I'll just put change barrels. Okay, interchangeable barrels. Okay. Let's go over here. Underworld. If I had a gun that came from the underground, so when I think of the underground, I think of trees. So I think of organic shapes. Right there. So I might have organic shapes. Try to avoid any hard angled edges. Okay. So when I think of underworld people, these people might have some type of vision problem, let's say, because they live underground and they don't have a lot of light. So they might have some type of sensors on their rifle. Sensory devices, some type of laser, some type of image-based system that's going to allow me to see. That could be a lot of fun. Heck, I could have, now when I think of that, I start thinking of some type of flashlight mount system. But maybe instead of that flashlight being super bright white, it's like a green tint because it's underground, right? What else could I possibly have when you think of underground? I think of rock. I was thinking of lava. So I like that idea of lava, red. How do I incorporate some type of lava design into my rifle? Okay. And this is my brainstorm process, guys. So I'm writing all this down on a piece of paper. And this is what allows me to jump from one point to another. Then I can come back and look at some of these and see the areas that I like, and then I can add them together. So I combine this process along with this process, and I'm guaranteed to be much more successful. Okay? All right, let me go ahead and I'll just end this demo right here.